You're listening to the Harbor Light Show, a podcast that discusses how people make sense of and assign meaning to their experiences. My name is Dr. Kenneth Erickson, and I hold a doctorate in the field of health psychology. In addition, I'm a practicing chiropractor, a martial artist, and a seeker of truth and authenticity. Join me, along with other fellow travelers, as we discuss the lessons they've learned in their travels and the impact those lessons have had on their lives. Okay, so tonight we got a friend of mine.
Really?
I think.
It's time for me to go?
Oh yeah, he's not here. We're going to have to deal with you. Brian Johnson is here tonight with us, and I've known Brian for a very, very long time. I had Brian as a teacher, a math teacher back, probably in the 80s, I'm guessing, in high school, I think. But I've known him for a very long time. Brian's been involved with teaching mathematics, and he's got a long, extensive history dealing with economics and taxes and all kinds of stuff like this. He's got a pretty unique vision, I think, on a lot of that stuff. So why don't we start, Brian, a little bit. Tell us how you got involved with teaching and what your background is a little bit.
I got involved in teaching in probably 1968, and I had a college deferment, an education deferment during the Vietnam War, and I saw a sign on the bulletin board that you got an occupational deferment if you started teaching inner city school in the city of Buffalo. So I chose teaching as opposed to getting drafted during the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And as luck would have it, when President Nixon came up with a draft, my number came up 72. I was married, teaching inner city school in Buffalo. 6 months later, I'd been too old, and I got drafted. So that's how I started teaching. Purely accidental, with no goals in mind and no plan.
And you started off teaching high school?
I started out teaching junior high school, 7th and 8th grade math, inner city school in Buffalo.
And then where did you go from there? How did that proceed? Did you keep teaching?
I found out that I really enjoyed teaching, and then I wound up getting a bachelor's in mathematics from the University of Buffalo, master's in mathematics from the University of Buffalo. Then I got my master's of business administration from St. Bonaventure, and then I went back to school again and got a bachelor's degree in Spanish from University of New York at Fredonia.
What was the deal with the Spanish?
I'm sorry?
What was the deal with the Spanish? Was it just an interest, or did you have a reason for doing
I was taking Spanish classes, and the professor came up to me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm taking Spanish classes. Do you understand that if you did it right and got into a curriculum with a program and an advisor, you're two courses away from a bachelor's degree?" So I took a couple more courses. I got a bachelor's degree by purely accidental. I believe that education is more of entertainment and learning as opposed to getting educated. There's a lot of difference between learning and being educated.
So talk about that a little bit. How do you see the differences?
There's a difference, in my opinion, between native intelligence is what you're born with, and being educated is what you hopefully learn in a structured environment and getting smart. I know educated people, God bless them, that are really, and Ken said I can't swear.
You can, if you want.
It's not appropriate. That educated people more often than not are fools because they think they know things. And when I taught statistics and calculus at JCC, Jamestown Community College, I asked my students, I said, when you get your degree, that's when your education begins, not because you are educated. If you go to high school, college, get your master's degree, and start teaching in the classroom, you've never hit the streets. You've never had the opportunity to say truly and honestly, I don't know. Because when I taught 7th and 8th grade math, one of the reasons why I left that program is because I taught the same thing over and over and over again. And then I got the fallacy that I knew what the hell I was doing. You never have the opportunity to really and truly have an experience of learning and teaching when you're stuck in the 7th grade math environment. So how many teachers are smart? They're educated. They might have native intelligence. But I believe that people become smart when you're on the streets making mistakes. And then you have the opportunity to say, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. And you learn from that. Then you become smart. So there's a difference between native intelligence, educated, and being smart.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people you don't need to go to school to be educated or smart. You need to go there and get a diploma. That's where the diplomas are. You know, you can get smart and be educated. You can, in today's world, I mean, with the internet, you have a lot of access to a lot of different things, but you got to go to school to get a diploma. You know, otherwise, how do you get one? So whether or not the diploma is worth anything, we could have a conversation about that.
Well, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Why does it take a master's degree for a person who loves children to have to teach 2nd grade children with a master's degree? It becomes a concept of self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to get the master's degree so the person who got the PhD can justify his existence.
Right. So now you've been teaching at JCC how long?
I've taught at JCC over 30 years.
And where else have you taught besides JCC?
I taught in the city of Buffalo. I've taught in Jamestown. I've taught in Amherst. I taught at a college in Texas when I was stationed in the Army. I was taught at Killeen, Texas. So I've taught literally all over the country.
So what's the difference, in your mind, between, say, teaching students, let's say at the community college level, versus some high school students in the inner city? What's the challenges between the two?
For all intents and purposes, if you go to a local community college, they serve an excellent purpose, but it truly is 2 more years of high school because you're home. You haven't left any place. You are still home. In order to get my daughters, when my children started to go to school, and I'm blessed with 3 wonderful kids. I mean, good thing they take after their mother. That's all I gotta say. I said, when you go to a 4-year school away from home, you make lifelong friends. You learn, you grow up away from home. So if you're at a community college and you're still at home, are you growing up?
Now, my
Or
understanding,
and growing out?
don't some students come from outside the area to go to JCC?
Yes.
But most of them are from local.
A lot of the students who are not locals, they're either at a university because of sports or because of a court program. They got into a jam in the Bronx, they wind up at Jamestown Community College.
That's an option for them.
Yeah, there's choice. Everybody has choices. Who's going to make the choice? You. Which brings up an interesting concept. Number one, I teach because I'm selfish. I learn more from the students than the students learn from me. I have a curriculum that I have to follow. When we interact in a classroom, the students have no curriculum to follow. So I learn from them more than what they learned from me. One student was departing the classroom at the end of the semester. She says, I listened to for the whole semester of statistics. What is the one point I am supposed to get out of this. And I'm thinking, thank you very much. But it's the concept of if-then.
Statistics we're talking.
We're talking statistics.
Okay.
And that's one area that we're taught in statistics, that it's the concept of making mistakes. If you understand that whatever you do, there is a consequence of your action, that no matter what the action is, if you do this, then you have to live with the consequences of your actions. I said, if you can understand the concept of if-then from my teaching one semester, then you're a step ahead of 90% of the students.
So where do you think people go wrong in their understanding of that type of thinking?
First of all, if I may, and you have no choice because I'm going to do it, I don't believe in the concept of right or wrong. I don't believe in the concept of good or bad.
At all?
At all. Because you can't measure the good or the bad until you live it and deal with the consequences of that. Was my effort to avoid the draft a good thing or a bad thing? Who the hell knows? Because I did not avoid the draft.
You ended up getting drafted.
I still got drafted. And if I may, during the concept of the Vietnam War, I still don't know why we're there in Vietnam. I told my father, I was sitting in the bar having a beer with my father at the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I said, I'm going to make a series of mistakes. I believe in the United States of America. I believe in the military. So I'm going to go. If I get orders to go to Vietnam, you're going to come and visit me in Toronto, because I'm not going to Vietnam.
Now, is that because you felt it was morally wrong, what we were doing?
See, now we're back to this concept of right versus wrong.
Well, there had to be a reason that you made that choice.
The reason my reason is today, I don't know why we were there.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate just a minute.
You do that very well.
Yeah, I think I do. You should hear my conversations in my own head. When you go into the military, my understanding, I've never been in the military, but my understanding is your job isn't to question your orders, or it's to carry out a mission that you're given, correct?
May I interrupt you now?
Yep.
Okay. When you go into the military, it's called basic training. The purpose of basic training is, number one, to take orders without question. If you are an E1, a private, and you take orders from an E2, which is a PFC, if it's a higher rank, you take orders without question. Secondly, you get in excellent physical shape, so that if you wanted to do a 10-mile jog with an M16 in a backpack, it's a piece of cake. You say, when are we going to start exercising? And thirdly, because it is the military, you learn how to kill.
But not everybody.
Basic training applies to all.
And that's where so you're talking about basic training.
I'm talking about basic training, the basic purpose of the military.
To get you started. Right.
Because you can get orders. My initial order was to be a mathematician, statistician. But when you're in the military and you wake up in the morning, you could have a new set of orders. Makes no difference that I was married, with a child, living off base. I could have got orders to go overseas. Right.
So what was your motivation, or what, if you don't believe in right or wrong or any of that, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that you didn't want to go to Vietnam because you didn't understand why we were there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, had you understood, let's just say you understood, would you also then had to have agreed with the reason? Say you understood and you went, I don't think that's a valid reason. Would you have went?
Of course not.
So it has to do with you had to agree
It's
that it,
my personal choice.
all right, now here,
If then.
so that's the rub to me, though. It seems inconsistent because, on one hand, you're telling me I don't see a right or a wrong, I don't see absolutes, but yet that seemed to be an absolute for you, where you made a choice. I'm not doing that if I don't understand why I'm going, and I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do it anyways. It's not an arbitrary choice, correct? There has to be some sense of something wasn't valid or wasn't correct or wasn't right, or so you get my point. I'm a little bit confused about how do you have a compass if you don't see right or wrong in anything? How do you decide what the choice is, unless it's random, unless you just roll a dice?
If you want to start talking about randomness, then we're going to start talking about statistics again.
No, I'm just asking a straight question of how if a person doesn't have a sense of right or wrong, or any kind of an absolute moral guidance, how do we choose then as human beings? How do we choose what we believe is correct or not correct, or I'm going to go, I'm not going to go? I mean, where does that come from?
I have learned a long time ago that if you disagree with me, I can't help it that you're being wrong.
Even
It's all a personal choice.
based on what?
It's all a personal choice based on your own life experiences and what you are taught and what you have learned. Everybody has a concept of right or wrong. Just because I don't believe in the concept of right or wrong, I think it's a value that you have to have. Right,
Okay.
wrong, good, bad, it's everywhere.
So it seems to me like you would have a sense of right or wrong personally, but on a larger take on it, you don't see it as an absolute. Just because you may view something as correct or right and something is not right and wrong, doesn't make it ultimately right or wrong. Is that correct?
Depends on how you define ultimate. Is it a religious idea?
Well, I don't know.
Is it a personal philosophical
You
idea?
said you didn't believe in the concept of right or wrong, but yet you've made a decision, or you told me that you would have made the decision not to go to Vietnam, and I'm just curious, like, what's that based off of? It would be one thing if you said, I didn't believe in the war. I didn't think it was a moral war. I didn't think we had any business over there. I didn't think, and it ran contrary to my beliefs. It ran contrary to my moral convictions. I get that.
There is a saying, and a veteran said, I would die for my country, but I would not cross the street for the government. That's the answer to That's the answer to your question.
So you see a distinction between the government and the country.
Like I told my father, I believe in the military. I have no problem with learning how to kill more efficiently. I have no problem with serving my country, but I do have a problem with the political bullshit Vietnam, where we lost 50,000 troops dead, and multiply that by 20 of the number of people, which I'm one, that got messed up because of the war.
Right.
Even though we might not go overseas, it still affects you.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that at all. And if I understand you correctly, without a good reason. Why are we doing it? Is that what you're saying? That was what was lacking.
In my opinion, that's what was lacking.
Right.
But I had friends in the Marine Corps who volunteered to do 2 tours over there. Had a lot of friends want to go over there because not only did they believe in the government, they believed in their country, and they believed in following orders. Sometimes I have a difficult concept of following orders. And the concept, and I've tried to tell people, if you hear the question that begins with the word why, end the question right then and there. Accept the point they're trying to make, not to discern the concept of why. Because as you grow up, if your parents say to you, what the hell were you, as soon as you hear the word why, you get defensive. Why did you do that?
It's a judgment. Someone shaming you, putting a judgment on you.
That's correct.
Right.
And one should have enough background experience in life to make their own personal judgments. I don't want someone to tell me what is good or bad.
Right.
I don't want someone to tell me what's right or wrong. That's my
And you
personal
don't feel,
judgment.
And I would imagine you don't feel the need to defend your position to anybody. Is that fair to say? To explain yourself.
No.
You don't feel that. Right. But
No, but one time I come home on leave, I was in uniform.
now you were in the Army, right?
I was in the Army.
Okay.
And the lady came up to me and she says, you know, you are nothing but a baby killer. And the reason that started was because there was a picture of I don't know if it was a Marine or Army, with an M16 shooting a 12-year-old girl. But what you don't see, the frame before that, is this individual had an AK-47 pointed at the military. All you see is one little girl dying. So when I was listening to this lady calling me a baby killer, and then I explained very briefly what the basic training is, and said, you're right, I am a trained killer by training. Can you imagine what I think of you at this very moment? And that ended the conversation.
Yeah. It seems to me the Vietnam War was just a profoundly, massively huge mistake on about every level that you could imagine because of the cost of human life, not just the people who got killed, the guys who came back, the whole dividing the country, the whole unrest, everything that came out of it. And now the crazy thing for me is I read a lot of stories where guys served over there now vacation over there. They actually go back over where they were serving in battle, and they've actually went into the areas and sometimes even talked to their so-called enemies. And of course, we're not enemies now. It just seems pointless to me. Like, what was all that suffering and loss for?
Just from a personal philosophical level, I don't know which war was worse, if you want to call Vietnam a war.
Right.
That or the Civil War.
Yeah.
The Civil War makes no sense.
Right.
The Vietnam War makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had a friend of mine who I went to school with who is born and raised in Mississippi, and I was down in Nashville, and we went to an area, I can't recall exactly, but it had the bloodiest fighting of anywhere in the Civil War in the shortest period of time. And we went there, and you can still see the holes in the buildings. They kept it. Him and I would have been bitter enemies if this took place in, 1861 or 2 or whenever the battle occurred. And it just seems senseless to me.
I disagree with that statement that you guys would have been bitter enemies. You'd have tried to kill each other.
Right.
But does that make you enemies?
In my opinion, you bet your ass it does. Because if you're trying to kill me, I have to see you as an enemy. That's for me.
But in order to have an enemy or to have a friend, you have to have an emotional concept.
That's true. That's true.
You can't have an emotional concept when you have
but the
bare
point,
seconds to make a decision.
But the point being, the point was we would have been very likely battling each other.
You'd have been adversaries, no doubt.
And we would not have been friends and hanging out together.
You didn't have a chance to know each other.
Right. And it just seems, I looked at that and I thought, look where we ended up anyways. What was the point of all that? We ended up still getting along, which seems crazy. Every time we go to war with a country, whether it be Japan, Germany, whomever, we all end up getting along eventually. It just seems senseless, all the fighting and the killing and everything. It just, but I'm speaking as a person who's never served. So, I don't want to overstep my bounds on it, but I just feel like, man, we just all end up in the same place eventually.
Yeah, dead.
Or not. Well,
no,
dead
no,
ultimately.
We all wind up in the same place.
Eventually.
Dead.
Eventually, right.
When I served in the military with career officers. I was the only private in the whole picture of where I was. These people believed in war. These individuals believed in the killing because that's who they were.
They had to.
That's who they were.
Right.
It's a concept of who are you?
You know, when we went into, I'm trying to think if it was Iraq the first time. I said to somebody, I was really opposed to it. I thought this is really bad. And they had I don't remember, they had a daughter or a son who was in the war. And me, in my ignorance, I didn't realize they needed to believe that the cause was just because they didn't want to believe their loved one was over there, risking their life for no good reason. And here I am spouting off about how I thought the war was unnecessary and bad, and it wasn't good. And I learned a valuable lesson that day. I'm not here to judge I got myself, they didn't yell, it didn't turn into, but you could see it hurt them because they didn't want to believe that. Probably no different than the people you're talking about. You kind of have to buy into it if that's going to be who you are, don't you? And what your life is going to be about.
It's, do you question who you are? On the board over there.
Right.
And if you answer the question honestly, who are you? And accept the answer, no matter who you are, that's who you are. Whether someone else agrees with you or disagrees with you is immaterial. You are still the person who you are. And if you are, by training, by profession, a trained killer, that's
Right.
who you are.
Well, I was talking more about their families.
I'm talking about them
I get
and
it.
their family and the whole picture.
Well, you get my point?
Yes. No, I understand perfectly.
Yeah, it was a mistake that I didn't repeat. I don't repeat it in any other aspect of life. My quick to judge, I've got all the answers. Remember what you said before about that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not me. Because now I'm like, I'm more interested. I'm more curious than I have answers. You know, I've got some interesting questions, maybe. I don't have a lot of answers, and I'm really careful about the judgment I put on people because, boy, how do I know what I'm digging up?
You don't know.
Right. So I'm very cautious about that. Let's talk a little bit about just probability and statistics and all of that for people who don't really know what that is. You said how did you describe it? You told that student if she walked away knowing, what was it again?
It's the concept of if-then.
If-then. So if this, then that.
And every event in life has a probability assigned to it. You don't know. If the probability of an event is 0, it ain't going to happen.
Do you believe that there are those? Do you believe in that? That there are 0 probability situations?
If you let me continue.
But I got to do
No, wait.
Because I'll lose my thought not to interrupt you, but I'll lose my thought.
Okay, but you don't care if I lose my thought.
No.
That's why you want to interrupt me.
Right. That's exactly right.
We've known each other for too long to be nice.
Too long.
And I told the student there are events that have a probability of 1. During the course of the semester, the students that I had, I said, there are 2 things you have to do. There are 2 events in life that have a probability of 1. Number 1, you're going to die. That's going to happen. And the other event is you have to live until you die.
Mm-hmm.
Make the best of both. Right. Enjoy as you can both.
Right.
So there are events that have a probability of 1.
Right. Now, how about the unexpected or unintended events, the X variable that comes up, that's not seen, that hits you out of nowhere, that changes or skews the probabilities?
From a statistical terminology standpoint, it's called a lurking variable. And just like individuals in your life who lurk, but you don't see them. As we speak right now, you and I, there are events in a political structure that will be changed that affect our life, and you have no clue what the hell they are now as they exist. Whether it be a health insurance issue or just a life issue, or the person who fixed your car forgot to put the lug nuts on the tires.
Right.
I mean,
something's coming up that
something
you can't,
will come up.
and you can't plan for it.
Something will come up.
Would you
that
say you can't plan for it, or?
you can't. It's impossible to plan for it because you don't know what the hell it is.
No, all right. Now I'm going to disagree with you for a minute. I think.
No. Just remember, if you want to disagree with me, you're going to be wrong.
Well, fortunately, you're not grading my papers right now, so I can afford to be wrong. I'm all right with being wrong. Here's my take on it, though. I think I agree 100% that we've got these unseen things that can happen. We don't know what. However, it seems to me that we can mitigate that. We can take actions to mitigate it. Because knowing that it's going to happen, knowing the likelihood of something coming out of left field is very likely, it's going to happen. I may not know what it is. It seems to me I can mitigate against that, though.
How can you mitigate? How can you plan for something that you know it's not? You don't have any clue.
The
what's
whole
going
idea
on.
of insurance is based on that concept.
The concept of insurance is based on the law of large numbers.
Yes.
It's not based on individuals. It's based on a large group. Because the insurance people know, they know.
It depends on which side of the equation you're on.
The insurance people know.
I would agree with you on
Now,
that side.
Let me finish.
Okay, I would agree on that side.
They know that you're going to die, but they don't know when.
That's true.
So they take the large number.
Right. Average it
And
out.
how much money can I make off of this large number?
Right. Absolutely.
Knowing the unknown. They know that they don't know who's going to die, and they don't care.
No argument that, but I'm arguing on the other side of the equation. Me as an individual, do I know I'm going to have something happen that's going to disable me? I don't know that. It may never occur. It could occur, and I don't have any idea when or if it's going to occur, right? But I can still mitigate that risk by taking insurance out that in the case that it does occur, I've at least made some effort to mitigate that risk.
It's a personal choice. The concept of retirement. I've had clients over the years, I'm not going to plan on retiring. I'm going to spend all my money now. I'm living for today because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So they mitigate that by maximize the enjoyment today.
Right. Now that's a good segue into what I want to talk to you about next. When I was in grad school, I did quite a bit of work looking at a guy named Daniel Kahneman, I think he's at Princeton. He won a Nobel Prize in economics, not as an economist, but as a psychologist. And he came up with something called prospect theory. I'm not an expert at it, but I want to go through a couple of the ideas and bounce them off you and get your take on it. One of the thing was this idea that how people assess their loss and gain. They assess their losses versus their gain in an asymmetric manner. In other words, they don't view them equally. Most people are more loss. They have an aversion to losing than they do to winning, but not everybody.
May I just say something?
Yep.
More people are afraid of success than failure.
Well, now hold on. So that may be true or not true, I don't know, but you're going to have to be willing to argue the data. There's data on this, a lot of data. They've done a huge amount of studies, meta-analysis on this stuff. There's going to be a little bit of difficulty here because I'm not a real expert on this, but most people have a bias towards risk aversion because loss in the majority of people, they found, creates a stronger emotional effect than gain does.
Say that again, please.
Okay. Most people have a bias towards risk aversion because loss creates a stronger emotional effect on them than the prospect of gain. And there's several ways we know this.
You're just reiterating what I said. You're more afraid of the negative. They're more afraid of success than failure.
Now, why would that be?
Because they anticipate failure. They don't know how to handle success. Because more often than not, that's how you're raised.
Right. Well, there's definitely, we're going to get to that for sure. this is based on the idea that the individual's fear of losses, that fear is greater than their joy of gains. Now, there's examples of it, okay? There's examples of this. For instance, a gambler that is down $500, he's lost 500 bucks. And this is statistics. So if we take large numbers of people and we watch how they behave, you get your typical bell curve, right? You're going to have your outliers, but then the majority is going to be within that distribution of the bell. The person who's down 500 bucks is more likely to take a risk to gain $500 than if they were up 100 bucks.
First of all, I am, by personality, a risk taker. I have to gamble. Have to, because that's who I am.
So that would mean,
But here's what I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm trying to get to a point.
All right.
It might take a while, but you have to be patient with me.
yeah,
If you walk into a casino with $100 and you build it up to $1,000 and you lose everything,
right.
how much did you lose?
How much did you walk in with? 100? You lost 100.
That's your opinion. Most people say, well, if I had quit when I was supposed to,
Right.
I would have $1,000,
Yes.
and that's what I lost.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I don't
So
argue, I don't argue
it's
that.
an individual viewpoint of how do you measure a loss.
I know, but what I'm saying is the data does not say that it's shared. It's not a 50-50 thing. There are
That's
the
correct. No, that's absolutely right.
you've got gamblers like you that take the risk, right? Because you probably minimize the loss and you enjoy the gain.
I maximize my gain and I minimize my loss because I do not like losing my money. But I have to take that risk.
Now that's interesting, isn't it?
I have to take the risk because that's how I was raised. I was raised drinking and gambling because that's who I am. You cannot deny who you are.
Can you change it?
You can change your behavior, but you cannot change who you are.
So you believe, now that's an interesting concept that you're bringing up because to me, who are you? Are you just a product of how you're raised? You know, the tabula rasa, the blank slate, right? I used to believe that about people until I had kids. Now I think kids come hardwired to a certain degree. I think their personalities, they come with them.
The concept of nature versus nurture.
That's what we're talking about.
That's correct.
That's what we're talking about. So, what you're saying is there's a certain nature.
If I may, you cannot change the nature, but you can change the nurture.
All right.
When I had students at JCC, I
Yep.
said, please accept this, that at this point in time, most of you are 18, 19 years old. Your life now is a clean sheet of paper. From this point on, you cannot blame your daddy and your mommy anymore. You're responsible for your actions. Write on a sheet of paper whom you wish to be. Create the person you want to be and live it.
Can you do that?
Is it possible for people to do that? Absolutely. You can change your behavior if you accept your nature.
Now, you told me you have to take the risk,
By personality.
but you could choose not to take the risk. Would that be fair?
Everything to me is a risk.
Yeah, but now you're playing semantics with me. You know
Of
what
course.
I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. You're skirting the issue on me. You know what I'm saying. If there's very little risk statistically in doing this, huge risk in doing this, something about the way you're wired would say, I got to take that risk.
Depends on the gain.
Okay. All right.
I assign a probability
Okay.
to the risk, and I call how much is it going to cost me, and what am I going to get? When I was at the University of Kentucky,
Right.
making $1.28 an hour, I had to go to the racetrack and bet $100 on his horse to win $20.
And would you do that?
I did it.
You did it.
The people who I was with, they bet $2 and they won $100. I could not bet the $2 on that horse because I didn't think the horse had a decent probability to win. So I bet $100 to show, so if the horse come in first, second, or third, to win $20.
You were willing to risk 100 to make 20.
Not willing, I did.
Right.
Because I had a reasonable probability in my belief, my skills and probability to win.
So it was based on your belief in the horses going to win.
It's a belief in myself. I don't know anything about this stupid ass horse.
So what did you base it off of? How big the horse's balls were? I mean, what do you got to come up with something.
Why do you always talk about sex, for Christ's sake?
It's my nature. It's my nature.
Nurture, too.
And not so much. Okay. Not as much as I want. But yeah, it's kind of like my nature would be. I would be totally the opposite of you.
That's correct.
Totally.
And most people would.
All right, now we're in agreement again, because that's what the data shows.
That's correct.
Okay.
But
now, that's what
my data says this horse is going to come in first, second, or third.
All right, now here's another scenario. A person gets into a situation, gambling or whatever it is, and they make $50 and they walk away. Okay. Another scenario is they start with 100, they win 100, and then lose 50 and they walk away. They're more upset about the second scenario, way more, most people, than they would be the first, because they're leaving on a loss. I lost. I had 100. It's the same thing you just said before. That's another thing.
And they walk away with 50.
Now, the outcome is the same. Either way, they made 50. The first time they won, one turn of the wheel, and they win $50. The next scenario, they actually win 100 the first time. Then on the second go-around, they lose half of it. But at the end of the day, both end up with the same amount. The outcome's exactly the same. Make $50.
Okay, what did they wind up with?
$50.
You start out with 100, you wind up with 50.
Yes, on the second scenario.
Okay.
The point being, the one ended on a win, the other sees it that I ended on a loss, even though the money's the same. It's a perception of loss.
I gambled and drank with my friends and family, blah, blah, blah. I love my family very much. I went to the racetrack with my father. He walked me with 100. I know what he started out with.
Right.
And now we're leaving. He has $50. Dad, how'd you do? I won $50. I said, how the hell can you say that? You start out with 100 and you have 50. How can you say you won $50? He says, because I planned on losing it all.
Right.
So he's $50 ahead.
Now, my question is that rational?
To him, yes.
Yeah, but is it
to
rational?
Me? No, he's still down $50.
Okay, now that's what
You're adding and subtracting.
That's what Kahneman's work is based on. That right there. That
right.
People do not base their judgments and their decisions on rational, logical thinking. They base it off of emotion, which is irrational as hell. Here's another example.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
My background is mathematics and MBA and blah, blah, blah. 10 years ago, I read a statement. Every decision is based on emotion.
Right, absolutely.
Period.
Right.
Now, with my training and my background, I said, how the hell can that be possible? But the more you think about it,
yes,
and the more you accept that,
yes,
every decision is emotional.
right.
Period.
Yes. And that's where I'm taking this conversation, hopefully, because I know you've got a ton of experience working with a ton of people about finances, what to do with money, how to work with it. The three main factors that influence decision-making, according to Kahneman, one was certainty. People will choose a certain gain over a risk that rewards potentially even a greater gain. They'll play it safe, in other words. Most people, not you. You're a risk taker. People like you are risk takers.
But I play it safe.
In your mind.
Of course.
In your mind, right.
Not your mind.
Maybe not my mind. When faced with certainty of losses, people tend to take greater risks to avoid the certainty of a loss. Here's an example. A gambler trying to recover their losses becoming increasingly more desperate to do so.
Absolutely.
You agree with that,
Oh,
right?
my God, yes.
Yes. Now, here's an example. Certainty,
putting good money after bad.
yes, exactly. Which is irrational as hell.
Oh, my God, yes.
Okay. Certainty of gains. Take $50, right? That's one option. This was the old let's make a deal. Remember, you can take the money right now or trade it for what's behind curtain number 2.
Curtain number 2.
Remember that kind of
Yes.
stuff, right? So take $50 or flip a coin, and depending on if it comes up heads or tails, you're either going to get 100 or you'll end up with nothing. Most people will take the 50 for sure. They're not going to flip that coin because they don't want to feel the loss. A risk taker, fuck it, flip the coin, man.
Now, from an emotional standpoint, there is a game that's well known that there are 2 individuals. The moderator says, I have $100. If person number 1 takes 90, the other person gets 10.
Right. This is based off of Kahneman's work as well.
In other words, you cannot lose.
You're going to get $10.
But data,
Yep.
studies
Yep.
said if one person takes too much, the other person tells them to go to hell,
And nobody
you're
gets
getting nothing.
And nobody gets nothing.
0
Right.
to 0.
And people will do it.
Absolutely.
And that's irrational. Well, look, either way, you're up $10. What do you care what this guy got? But there's a sense of moral outrage.
By
or something.
definition, rationality and irrationality is an emotion.
I agree
Everything's
with that.
based on emotion.
Well, for humans, but I'm going to argue there is a rational way forward. The whole thing of economics was based off the study of utility from 1944 onward. And it was the idea that people will act in their own best interest. What's their own best interest? Maximize profits, minimize loss. That's rational.
But that game, there's no loser.
How is that?
You have nothing going in and you have nothing coming out. If you choose, the other person gets 0 and you get 0, you have not lost a thing.
But you also haven't gained, and you could have gained.
That's correct.
and the
But you
only
still
reason-
haven't lost.
Wow.
No. Okay, if you walk in and you walk out with the same number, you haven't lost. I understand your point.
Yeah.
I agree with your point.
Yeah. Well, that's a tricky one.
It's not tricky.
It's tricky in a way, because here's the thing. You have to, in order to survive in the world, to physically, emotionally, every other way, you have to have more coming in than what leaves. That's true physiologically. That's true every which way.
Okay, now say that again.
You have to have more coming in than what goes out. You have to have a net gain in this world to survive.
But from a philosophical level, you
get
come in with nothing,
I understand
and
that.
you leave with
but
nothing.
I'm talking about the real world where you're going to live. You're going to live or die based on whether or not you have more at the end of the day than you started with. Now, let's say that you didn't. Let's say you went into oxygen debt. You used more oxygen than you took in. You're dead. Dead. If you expend more calories in a particular point over time than you take in, you're dead. Not philosophically dead. Dead.
You're dead.
You're dead. You have to take in more than you're expending in every aspect or you don't survive. Now, the problem becomes people start putting judgments on that. That's where your emotions come in. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's, well, so in the case where I would make the argument, to get $10 benefits you, whether you come in with nothing or not, for you to just give that away based on nothing except a moral outrage or some sense that it's not fair, in my way of thinking, would not be rational.
Okay, now say that again. I'm sorry.
All right, to give away, just give it away. Let's say $10, because you
Do I have 10?
You got
That's
nothing.
all?
No, you got nothing right now.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you 10. And the way the experiment, this was based on Kahneman's work, they went up to random people and said, would you take $10, no strings attached? Sure. Every single person, not a single one. I don't think a single one said, no, I don't think that. No, fine. Well, how about if I give you 10 and give this guy 100? Well, that doesn't seem fair. Well, you have the choice where neither one of you get nothing. Fine, I want nothing then.
Most people would take the 10.
I don't. That's not what the data shows.
Okay. However,
The data shows the opposite.
no. However, if you offered them 1,000, they wouldn't take the 1,000.
I don't know if that's true. I'm only arguing from what the data has shown.
I know, but the point is, if it's a small amount, then it's okay to take it. Because,
well-
but if it's a big amount, now there's a factor of trust. Why would you give me $1,000?
No, that's true. We can muddy the waters
Right,
with a
right.
lot of that stuff. I agree with all that. But I'm just talking simplistic, right? How about certainty? So that's certainty of gain. How about certainty of loss? Okay? Here's an example. It's two scenarios. Guaranteed to lose $50. You're going to lose $50. Or you can flip a coin to lose nothing, or you're going to gain, or you're going to lose possibly another $50. So think about that for a minute. You're losing $50. The first situation comes up, you're down 50. That's a guarantee. You lost it. You made the bet and you lost $50. Now the guy says to you, look, you can either walk away with your $50 loss and let it stand the way it is, and in that case, you really did lose 50. You walked in with 50, you lost
Yes,
50.
yes.
Okay. Or you could flip a coin right now, and if it comes up heads, then you will lose nothing. You'll be restored your 50 and walk away with what you started with. But you have the chance you could lose another 50 on top of it. Then you could be down 100. You see the
So the second coin, either you get 0 or you lose 100.
Yeah, because you're going to lose another. You're going
Right.
to lose yet another.
Right.
Most people take that option.
To take the risk.
They do. It's irrational. But it's the idea of I can't live with that loss. I can't live with it. I don't want to be down. I was down $50, and this is a chance to redeem myself. They'll do that.
That's very common
Yeah,
amongst
absolutely.
gamblers. Because I went to the racetrack with an individual. We're walking out, and he had broken even. I knew he was up a lot of money. We're walking out. He had at the end what he began with, and he was irate.
Because he saw that as a loss.
Oh my God! He said, "I might as well just stay home.
Right.
I would rather lose $500 than to break even."
Okay, that brings up another example. That's a good one. That segues into this study. They looked at people who won gold, silver, and bronze medals, let's say in the Olympics or something, right? And they found that the people who won the bronze were much happier and more satisfied than the people who won the silver.
Because the silvers are losers.
They were trying to win, and they lost. They see it as a loss.
The Browns were winners.
They might not have even thought they were going to place above 4 or 5.
They're winners.
Yes. So the whole idea is let's pretend for a minute there is such a thing as rational thought. Are you capable of pretending that? I know it's a stretch for you, but let's just bear with me. Let's pretend there is a thing called rational thinking that says silver is better than bronze. You placed higher. You won. Human beings can see that as a loss, according to this work, because they're irrational. They're just irrational. It's all about comparative. I think Theodore Roosevelt said that comparison is a thief of joy. You want to be miserable? Start comparing yourself to somebody else. Here's another example that they did. Let's say you have a company, okay? And in that company, everybody gets a 20% raise in income. Versus one guy, nobody gets a raise except one guy gets a 5%. He's going to be happier more often with his 5% raise because compared to the other guys, he's the only one who got the raise, than if everybody got a 20% raise. Because he doesn't feel like he benefit. Why should those guys get raises? They suck. They didn't do shit. I'm the one doing all the work. That's been statistically shown as well. More irrational thinking in my mind. What do I care what raise you got? What difference does it make to me?
Why would I begrudge you wealth
People do every day.
if it costs me nothing?
People do every day.
It's normal behavior.
But doesn't mean it's rational behavior.
By definition of rationality, blah, blah, blah.
Because there's a big
It's
difference.
human nature to begrudge people's success.
All right, so here's my thing. Now we're going to tie it into you. I come to you and I say, look, I want some advice on how to manage money. I know the future's not guaranteed to anybody. I get it.
But I know you won't listen.
I've been listening to you for my whole damn life. Christ. I do listen. That's why I wanted you on. I do listen. Look, you wouldn't believe this, and I wouldn't believe it either, but I tell people, Brian is one of the smartest guys that I know. Now, he's an incredible pain in the ass. but you're one of the smartest guys I know. And the reason I say that is because you're so smart, you can argue anything, upside down, pull it apart, flip it around. The good thing about that is you get me thinking about things I haven't thought about. I gotta stop and go, I didn't consider it.
Am I supposed to say thank you? Is
No.
Is there a
That's an
compliment in there
insult.
that
No,
I'm
there's no
missing?
compliment at all. That's straight up, that's an insult right there. But it also happens to be the truth. But so let's go on to this thing called an isolation effect. That's another part of it. Now, people tend to focus on the differences between options rather than the similarities. And the reason they think they do this is to basically reduce the cognitive strain placed on their brains. Because if you take a look at a highlight, it's a little bit of a hard concept to think about originally, but it's not really that tough. If
You told me before I didn't have to think.
I know, I lied.
You lied.
If you highlight something in text, people have a tendency to remember that. It's different than the rest of the text. They look at that and they remember that. It's easier. But maybe the truth is, because it's highlighted, it doesn't necessarily make it more important. Maybe you should have struggled a little bit to look at the things that you didn't see a difference in, and you would have been better served by doing it.
As I explained before, I've got tons of years of education. Whenever I had to buy a textbook, I made sure that it was not marked. I didn't want anybody else's opinion as to what they thought it was important.
Right.
I want to read
Yeah,
what I want to read.
That's an example of what I'm talking about.
Right, exactly. That's what made me think
That's
of
an
it.
example of what I'm talking
Right.
about. Now, it goes on to say we not only remember the differences between two stimuli, we tend to give it greater weight, greater importance. Here's the example. You take two people who have a huge amount in common with each other. One happens to be white, one happens to be black. Human beings have a tendency to focus on the difference, not on the similarities. That's where tribal thinking comes in. That's where all the political bullshit and everything else, where now I'm in my camp, you're in your camp, we're different, I don't like your guy and you hate my guy. We're focusing on what we see as the differences, not on the similarities, because the similarities we got to think more.
Yeah, but that's what makes a horse race.
Well, that's
All the difference in the horses.
Well, yes, but the point being, in terms of his work, showing that it's irrational, is we do it because we're lazy. We want to decrease the cognitive load on our brain. I don't want to think that hard. I don't want to look past the surface to really think about stuff. I'll just pay attention to the obvious difference. You speak a different way. You have a different look. You listen to different. That's enough for me. It's called the isolation effect, and people do it because it's much easier to fall into that kind of thinking. And Kahneman looked at that type of stuff and said people make a lot of economic decisions based on that. A lot of them. It's irrational, but they
probably
do.
marital decisions, too.
Everything else in your life. Everything else in your life. The last one, loss aversion. Loss aversion, right? Or no, sorry. That's a different, did I have this one already? Yeah, so I talked about it. So certainty, isolation, and then loss aversion, which we started with. That's the fear of loss is greater for most people than the joy of gain. People tend to remember losses more intensely than their gains. That's why people will say, they play the scratch-off tickets, right? Oh, I'm up 150 bucks. How much did you spend to get that? They don't want to think about it, because they don't like the thought of it, so they have a tendency to downplay it. They want to think about their gains. That's irrational. I've got a friend of mine who started buying investment properties, okay? And I said, man, by the time you pay for it, and you pay the taxes on it, and you got to remodel it, and there's all kind of insurance, I don't see you recouping your investment, maybe in your lifetime. He doesn't think that way at all. He doesn't want to hear that. All he talks about is, I'm bringing $1,000 a month in every month. That's all he talks about. He doesn't talk about what it actually, in reality, is costing him. Now that, in this model, would say that's irrational. You got to view everything. You can't just look at one thing, but because he doesn't want to talk about the loss, he doesn't like the loss, he focuses on the gain all the time. He's constantly talking about what's coming in. I'm like, yeah, but how much is going out? How much did it cost you to make that? I mean, in my world, where there is rational and irrational thinking, not in a philosophical abstraction, that would be irrational. Now, if I came to you
Okay,
as a,
all right.
as a money guy and I asked you,
Now, let me interrupt you, if I may, about the house example.
yes,
If the person is playing the real estate game with borrowed money, you're absolutely right. If they're playing the real estate game with their own cash coming out of their pocket, now they become rational. Because if you borrow the money, you have nothing to lose.
well, so the politicians who use our money,
Absolutely.
they don't have to be accountable. East doesn't have to be West.
Nobody's responsible, no
Right.
one's accountable.
Well, I'm telling you, this dude's playing with his own money,
Okay.
and he's irrational in my
Now
mind.
that's irrational.
Okay. So I come to you as a financial guy and say, look, man, here's the thing. I'm looking to increase my money. I want to make money. I want to somehow increase. And here's my thought. I'm going to buy this place and that place. I'm going to do. I know you a long time. I know you're going to say, wait a minute. How much are the taxes? How much are the insurance? What's your initial investment? How much you're going to have to pay to bring that up so you can rent it? You're losing money. That's a loss. That's a bad deal. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
That's the point being, everybody until Kahneman kind of came up with this, believed people could see that and would act accordingly. They thought that's actually how people, they weigh the pluses and the minuses and they make a rational decision. Kahneman said, no, they don't. They absolutely don't. They're irrational as hell. It turned the whole thing upside down. Now, I got a feeling
They want to substantiate the concept of being right.
their emotions.
Yes.
All right.
They
Absolutely.
can't accept the fact that they made a mistake.
Too painful? Too painful? What do you
I
think?
have a client who makes 10 decisions in the stock market. This is true. 9 out of 10 make money. The 10th one is a loser,
Okay.
and he cannot admit it until he loses all the money that he gained plus this one.
Then he accepts
So
it?
he winds up losing everything. And then the next year he says, well, at least I have a net operating loss I can carry forward.
Now, perfect. So we've gone through all this stuff. So here's the thing. In your mind, now you've been through a lot of shit in your life. There's no question about it. And you've taught, you've been in the military, I mean, all that. You've been married, you've had whole life experience. You've dealt with countless people, I'm sure, looking to do something with money. You've studied statistics. What can we take away from all that? Like, what's fundamental to human beings? That everything is based on emotion and feelings?
If everything is based on emotion, and if you can accept the fact that every action that you have, there's a reaction, and you have to live with that. You have to live with the consequences of the actions of your life. The choices of your life, whatever the consequences are, you have to live with them. You have to.
Now, let's say that cognitively, I don't want to accept it. I can't accept it.
Don't use big words.
You think in your brain, you're thinking, I don't want to do. That's going to create nothing but stress, correct?
Absolutely.
Nothing but misery in your life.
They don't want to think about it.
Now, you told me one time you have to decide what mistake you can live with. Do you remember telling me that? That's what you said one time to me. What mistake can you live with? Given two situations, I can either do A and I can do B. What happens if A's wrong? Well, you got to live with that. That was a mistake. You got to live with it. What happens if B's wrong? Then you got to live with that. Which one can you live with?
And the reason why I asked you that is because you would not understand the concept of winning. I didn't ask you what gives you the biggest gain. Because knowing you and your personality,
Right.
You're going to focus on the mistakes.
Right. That's true.
And what then,
That's true.
in order for me to communicate with you, I have to ask you which mistake
So you want me to believe that all that shit was going on in your head when you said that to me?
Absolutely.
Well, see, I
It didn't take long because I know you. No, but seriously, if you know the people, it's easy.
That's important.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of this tonight. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
See, now, until just now, I didn't even know that you got, like, I'm like, what the hell? But that's right. That's 100%.
That's you.
Yes.
Who are you?
Right.
I know from a sliver
Yes.
who you are.
You know I don't like losing.
And
I get more upset over a loss, typically. Although, let me say, 4 years ago, that changed quite a bit. I had open heart surgery 4 years ago. I'm not even supposed to be here right now. Had I been born at a different time, my natural lifespan ended 4 years ago. Dead. No maybe about it.
That's correct.
Okay. I look at every day now as a bonus. I'm way less averse to losing now than I was all those 50 plus years prior.
People cannot accept the fact that every day is a gift.
We think it's going to go on forever
unless you go through what you went through.
A life-changing.
Right.
So now I look at it and go, yeah, I'll try it. Who cares? If it wins, great. If not, I'm not. It's okay. I can live with it. That never happened for me before. That never happened for me. I'm much more of a risk taker now than I ever had been prior, with one caveat to that. I don't want to take risks. Well, I'm kind of half lying about this too, I think.
Well, no, because you don't want to be stupid.
That, and I don't want my family to suffer.
Right.
If it's just me,
now you're past yourself.
what do I care? I'm past myself, right? But I don't want my family to suffer because of my stupidity or my irresponsible behavior. Not to say that I can control it, but at the end of the day, I want to lay down at night and go, you know what? I did really the best I could do. I know it didn't work out. I don't want to live with knowing I took irrational risks, just threw caution to the wind, whatever, and then because I did that, my family's going to suffer. That's where I'm at in my life right now.
A concept of irrational gambler. I'll make a long story short. Team A is playing Team B. I told the guy, and this is the statement of fact, bet both teams. You're a guaranteed winner. Couldn't. Has to bet one team with a 50-50 chance of losing. He lost.
Why do you suppose that is?
He didn't want to win. People have more difficult time with success than failure. So if I say to you, bet both teams, right? What would you do? How much money can I borrow from you, and you're going to bet both teams, and you are a winner. This gambler could not do it.
Where does that fear of winning, fear of success, do you think stem from?
From, parents, your parents.
Now, if you're raised in a culture or an environment where winning is expected, you are a winner, and we're winners. Here's the example that comes up, the Kennedys for me. Everything I read about the Kennedys, that's just, it's part of their fabric of their family.
That's who they were.
It's who they are. They're winners.
Exactly.
Now, you look at their lives.
Oh, my God.
Right.
It's a train wreck.
Train wreck. Absolutely. But I expect to win. Not only do I expect to win, I believe I'm entitled to win. And I don't suffer guilt. My question is, I wonder how much of this I'm not comfortable with winning is actually because I don't feel deserving to win.
That's correct.
Does
And
that
that's
ring
how
true?
you're raised.
Right.
You don't deserve to win.
Right.
My father, whom I love dearly, and I'll come up with this idea. And he said, I want to believe he was sincere, but I don't know or not. If that was such a good idea, why doesn't everybody do it? So that shoots my idea down. Because now it has to be a bad idea.
Right. I was raised with that similar thinking.
I think most people are. How many people are taught to be wealthy? How many people are taught to be successful? Every parent will say, I want my children to be a success.
Right.
But do they teach them how to be a success?
Or do they teach them to be more comfortable losing?
That's correct. It is normal to lose because everybody loses, so don't worry about it. Just get used to it. And I say, bullshit.
Right. So you were raised with that kind of a concept.
Absolutely.
How did you overcome it?
I found out that working, you make money, and if you lose it, it's gone. And that ain't fun.
So you attached more pain to the losing of it and more enjoyment out of the potential of winning, so you gravitated towards the winning?
When it comes to money, I don't like to lose. I do not like to lose. However, when it comes to playing tennis, I will never be an excellent tennis player. I want to win as much as the next person, but losing doesn't bother me. Because to me, it's recreation.
Right.
I played with competitive tennis players. They have to cheat to win. I said, quit cheating. The fucking line is the line. If the ball is on the other side of the line, it's out. No, it's not, because they can't tell.
They can't do it.
They have to cheat. And the guy says, that's why I'm a success in life. That's why I'm wealthy, because I've cheated my way through life.
And he sees that as winning.
Absolutely. I'm the fool.
Right. For playing by the rules?
Yeah.
Right.
Play by the rules and lose.
Right. So I guess to wind it up, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff. I think it was really good. Here's what I want to know. Do I have the read correctly? People often are adverse to winning. They don't want even the concept of possibly, if you try to win, you might lose.
If I may paraphrase that, people have a difficult time. They have a more difficult time with success than with failure.
And the reason for that is?
The way they were raised.
Yeah, but I get that. That's what caused it. But the reason for it is the thought of, if I take my shot, if I try to be a winner, and I lose, I'm going to feel terrible about myself.
Yeah, but not only that, but your friends, they accept you as a loser.
Yes.
Not as a winner.
And if you're a loser, everybody commiserates with you.
Right. Now all the losers can relate.
They can all get together
and go have a beer.
and bitch and moan about how unfair
That's
life
right.
is and how
That's
terrible
right.
everything is.
Exactly.
Right. But it all comes down to emotion, yes?
At the risk of repeating myself, every decision, everything is based on emotion.
Right. But you need to repeat yourself. Because
nobody believes me anyway.
People need to hear things over and over.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
over, right? I hear it once, I forget it. I hear it twice, maybe I remember it. I hear it 3 times, maybe I understand it. I got to hear it. I got to keep coming back to it. So if everything is based on emotion, which is basically what Kahneman was able to show, if you think that people are not emotional creatures and they're just robots and they use the gain of utility or to their own betterment, his work showed no, they don't. And now the reason I stumbled on this was when I started as a grad student looking at my work in the health field, I realized the same thing with health, same thing. Why would anybody smoke? Why would anybody eat foods that weren't healthy for them? Why? It's irrational as hell, because it's not based on rationality. It's based on all the stuff we just talked about. I believe that's true in every aspect of life.
And if you go historically, the concept of the Marlboro Man, John Wayne, now the image of success is negative behavior.
Because why? You're a rebel? You're not being told what to do? I do my own thing? Something like that?
I don't know.
Who knows?
But it is what it is.
Now
Advertising is effective.
Now that's in America. That's in America. That's not true all over the world. There's many cultures who see that as, that's a shameful thing, especially in Asian cultures.
The cultures that I've bummed around Central America, blah, 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 not smoking is not acceptable.
Well, smoking may be one thing,
but I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if
it's
it's because I'm just not sure that we may be talking about 2 different things. There's the smoking, but the Marlboro Man and the John Wayne thing and all of that was individualism. That's what those guys represented. I'm my man. I'm my own man, God damn it. I'll smoke if I want. I'll do what the hell I want. What I'm saying in those other cultures often it's no, to be part of the community,
That's right.
right? It's not the individual thing. Now, smoking could be looked at hey, of course you smoke because we're all part of a community here. Whereas I think the whole thing you're talking about in the United States was based off this idea of rough individualism. Now, the tide has turned recently, very, very harshly, where now it's looked at as a shameful thing. Now people want to feel much more that there's equity of outcome, not equality of opportunity, equity of outcome. We're all going to finish the same, because to be an outlier is a shameful. It's prideful. It's selfish.
My age was, if you were on welfare, I'm 75. If you're on welfare 70 years ago, you hid it.
It was shameful.
Oh my God, yes. Now it's so prevalent now.
Yes.
People want to be
There's
on
no
welfare.
stigma.
People want the government handout.
Mm-hmm.
They want the community outcome.
It's a sense of community. Yes.
And now they want the
Right.
Yep,
Yep.
we're all
Yep.
on it. And if where's the money that everybody else got? How come I didn't get mine?
Right. Right.
Instead of working for it.
So it's really interesting to me how mores and different things mold us, and how influenceable we are as human beings.
And it takes time for that to happen.
Yes. Right.
So in my short lifetime, long lifetime, however you want to look at it, when my second year of teaching, my principal came to me, Brian, if I get into trouble because the way you're dressed, you're going home and changing. I had dress shoes on, dress slacks, sport coat, turtleneck.
And that was
Not socially acceptable. I had to have a tie.
Oh.
Now you go into public schools, you can't tell the bum teachers from the fucking students.
Right.
Yes or no?
Right. Yes. Interesting.
But again, over my lifetime, you see the changes.
Yes.
From a technological standpoint, a text used to be a book, a noun. Now a text is a verb, a method of communication.
Oh, right.
And how long did that take?
Right.
5 years? 8 years? To see that
Yeah.
huge sociological change. It's just amazing.
And it used to be people had to have a conversation like we're having. Now they are on social media. They're disconnected from each other. How do you see that?
People my age say young people don't know how to communicate anymore. I said, you're absolutely wrong. They communicate more. They communicate differently. Just because they don't communicate the way we think they should happen, they're communicating more.
Well, I wonder if that's true.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just question it, because communication means we're listening and talking and listening and talking.
There's a message sent and a message
But
received.
and there's a lot to human communication that's nonverbal.
90%.
When I'm on a text, you're not looking at me. If I'm writing on Facebook, you're not looking at me.
Okay, but the flip side is you and I can communicate one-on-one. You go home, I go home. We cannot communicate the way we think we should, but we can still communicate. We can text back and forth. We can email back and forth.
But I'm not sure if it's the same communication.
That's correct. It's not. It is different, but it's still a form of communication.
I agree with that.
And you don't have to be across from the table
You don't.
to communicate.
But you also, when you insult somebody and really criticize them, and you're looking them in the eye like I'm looking at you, that's a different dynamic than doing it from the autonomy of your computer. And that happens a lot, where people don't even have to say who they are.
But now we're back to the concept of let's say, for lack of better words, if every decision is based on emotion, what emotion is communicated via in a text or via email? It's not. It's not. It's not emotional anymore. You and I can look at a good-looking girl, and I say, "Shit, she's hot," and you say, "What a cool babe." The opposite words mean the same thing. So now when you text those words, what do they mean? We know what it means.
But here's the thing: when you lose intention, I think you're losing communication. When I don't know what your intent is, you know, remember the movie My Cousin Vinny, and the guard or the sheriff said to the kid, "So is that when you shot the clerk?" And he said, "I shot the clerk." Well, then when it was read in the courtroom, he read it. So I said to him, "That's when you shot the clerk," and he said, "I shot the clerk." The intention's completely different when you turn it into text.
Absolutely.
So I say we're losing communication.
We're losing the emotion of communication.
And the intention of it, not just the emotion of it, but what I intended to say is lost when you're not looking at me, you're not hearing the inflection of my voice.
Now the intention becomes a crapshoot.
So I would say communication has been diminished because of that. We're still communicating, but not in a meaningful way, not in a way that we're not communicating through the full spectrum.
Because possibly people our age have to learn how to communicate via the text message.
Maybe, but maybe also it just does. We're comparing apples and oranges. Maybe it just.
Yeah, but it's too late.
Well, that's another.
No, it's the concept of technology is the locomotive on the railroad tracks out of control with no engineer.
Right.
It is going 90 miles an hour, and
All right.
we're saying,
So
holy
your
shit.
point would be,
Holy shit.
what good does it do to bitch and moan and complain about it? That is the reality that's
It's
going on.
the reality of
So-
life.
So how can we deal with it?
The scary part is, again, in my opinion, we have a concept of, for money, whatever, education, we have haves and have-nots. The haves are getting so much smaller, but they have so much more wealth, they have so much more power than what we're used to. The train that's out of control is really under the control of the haves.
So we're being manipulated.
We are being manipulated every day of our life. And we don't even fucking, if my swearing offends you, it's too bad, get over it. You just have to learn to accept it.
Do I have to accept it from my own personal life?
Yes, but do you have to accept it without teaching your children what the hell is going on? I didn't like my kids watching TV, not because of the programming, it was because of the advertising. I didn't want my kids
Right. Getting manipulated like
to
that.
think
Yeah.
that I have 3 great kids. I am lucky. If you're having dinner and you're full, quit eating.
Right.
Quit eating. You don't have to clean your plate. If you take the food, you clean your plate. If I give you the food on your plate, you don't have to finish it. If you're full, quit eating.
We used to eat at this Chinese restaurant when I was in St. Louis. I was taking physics and chemistry. And we would go to this thing, and one time we hit it late. So they were going to start getting rid of the food, so we took more because I didn't want to be lacking. I couldn't eat it all. And the boss come out, the woman, she was pissed. You take as much as you want, eat as much as you want.
As long as you eat it.
You eat it. And the idea of leaving that food there, wasted. We got it made, she came out and
That's the
let us
concept
know.
of smorgasbord from a restaurant. We don't care what you eat. We don't care what you take, as long as you eat what you take.
Right, don't just take it and waste it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people will look at you, and they would look at the garbage that you're throwing away.
Yeah, wasteful. So one last question. If you could go back in time, say 40 years, 50 years. What did
60 years.
60? Maybe not that far.
No,
back.
no, I'm old.
Maybe not that far back. What advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you know now and all the travels and everything you've been through?
The advice I gave to a teenager, I was talking to a client, and his daughter happened to be there. Do what you want. Do what you think is fun. There's so many things that's not fun. Focus on what you enjoy for the rest of your life. Period. Doesn't make any difference what you study. Doesn't make any difference what you don't study, as long as you enjoy it. The father did not like those words. No, she has to go to school, and she has to, okay, that's fine. That's parental advice. And I told the girl, teenager, I said, that's good advice. It's excellent advice from your father. I'm telling you, listen to what he says, but have fun. If it ain't fun, then please don't do it. No matter what it is.
But we're certainly raised to believe that that's wrong, aren't we?
Correct.
But looking back on now 75 years of living,
I had too much fun.
did you?
I had too much fun.
Too much fun.
Because growing up,
Right.
God bless my parents, I love them dearly.
Yeah.
I had no control. No control. I did what I wanted when I wanted.
That's how you were raised.
No.
You did it.
I
Despite.
did it.
Despite
No,
what
not even
they
out of
wanted.
spite.
No, what I'm saying.
I just did it because I wanted to.
Yeah, what I'm saying is despite their best efforts to try to control you. I'm sure they didn't want you being just. Don't most parents.
You're giving my parents too much credit.
That could be. I didn't know your parents. That could be.
That's correct.
Yeah, that could be.
That's
that's fair point. Got ya. All right, man. Well,
And
look,
I don't want to say anything negative.
no,
about
I
my
get it.
parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's too easy for people to blame their parents and blame whatever. You know, it's like most of the time I think they did the best they could, even if it wasn't great. That's my opinion.
That's your opinion.
It is my opinion.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, you typically disagree with everything I say, though.
I can't help you wrong all the time.
Yeah, right. I know. I get it. I get it. But
that's why I try to tell my students in the college, your life now is a blank sheet of paper. You're writing the script of your life. Quit blaming your daddy. Quit blaming your
Do you
mommy.
think parents knowingly and purposely screw their kids up on purpose? They do it?
'Cause that's how they were raised.
That's what I'm saying. That's why my whole point that you just disagreed with. I think you disagree with me out of reflex sometimes.
Just out of spite.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well,
No,
listen,
because you think that you're right all the time and you ain't.
that's not true. That is not true. I think I don't know what's. I have a lot of questions these days. Not too many answers anymore.
Well, how long did it take you for that concept to get through your thick skull?
Over 50 years.
That's right.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Took a long time.
Took a long time. Plus, the whole journey through the doctorate program, you get to a point where you start to realize a lot of this is bullshit. I mean, language. There's a guy. I can't think of his name. He was a kind of a mentor to me. He came up with lateral thinking. I just blanked on his name, but he famously said, Edward de Bono was his name. He was from the island of Malta. He's a medical doctor. He said that fluency of language often masquerades as integrity of thought. So if something is said well, it appears to be as true in content as it was expressed. Correct. Right? That's the realm of academics in my mind. A lot of those people are very good with language, but yet, and even if they speak true things, there may be no truth in them because they haven't lived it. I think sometimes when you're in a bubble, you're somehow isolated from living. This gets back to what you said earlier. You haven't been in the streets. You haven't lived life. How can you know it? How can you really know it? You can talk about it. You could quote chapter and verse of a book or whatever, but there's a big difference between knowing it.
I was walking down the streets of Old San Juan with my daughter. walked into this alley, and I went too far. And she says to me, Dad, I don't like this. I said, Brianna, don't ever remember this feeling, because if you have this feeling on your own, you fucked up. You are someplace where you're not supposed to be.
So don't do it.
But how can you?
How do you know
can't
it?
teach the feeling.
How do you know it till you feel it?
You can't teach a feeling.
Right. You hope they survive it. You hope you survive the mistakes.
That's right.
Yeah.
As a parent,
Right. Absolutely.
all you do, you get to a certain point in time, hopefully every morning, you pray that your children survive the day.
Yep.
Not some whacked out kid with an AK-47 randomly shooting children.
Well, and that's a minor thing. Minor. Very
Low probability that
very few kids have ever been killed that way.
That's right.
You know what I worry about? Taking some kind of a drug
Absolutely.
that's going to kill them.
Absolutely.
Getting involved with drinking, risky behavior, drunk driving, a million other things that could kill them. You know, the shooting is one of those, we pay attention to it
Right.
because it's so tragic.
Right.
But it's like, it's statistically, I worry about just the everyday shit. I worry about the advertisements that they see on TV.
That's
That's a
my
threat.
point of television.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. That's a major. You know, Denzel Washington, one of the pieces of advice he gave was make sure you put your slippers under your bed, far under your bed. So every morning you have to get on your knees to get them. And while you're down there,
Pray.
yeah.
And I raise my kids, I don't care if you believe in God or not. It's your choice as an adult. But from my standpoint, there's always a supreme being. And there's always the concept of treat other people how you want to be treated. After that, forget it. Right?
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. Listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on. It was great. I know it was probably torture for you, but it was a lot of fun for me.
Well, now all your people who are watching, they're going to say, oh, shit, I'm not turning this program on again.
Well, I might put a little thing on it that says, if you're having difficulty sleeping, we have your cure.
We have the solution.
That's right. Listen, I want to thank you once more. I really appreciate it. It was great. And I'm happy that you took the time to do it. So thanks very much.
Well, when I texted the other day, I said, if you want me, let me know. And if I say it, I mean it.
Well, I appreciate it. You've always been a man of your word to me, always. Right. And we kid each other a lot, man, but I care a lot about you. I respect you very much.
It's mutual.
So
right.
Thank you again, man.
Yeah, you're
appreciate
welcome.
It.
Thank you.
Yep.